Unfortunately, we have all gotten used to games releasing like trash, but every once in a while, the backlash is so bad that they have no choice but to fix it. Now, we all heard about Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky, but one game we forget about is Battlefield 2042. Now, we all remember the dumpster fire that this game was when it released, but how has it improved, and how does it compare to the game it is today? First, we gotta go back all the way back to the year 2021 when the world was still in the midst of the Black Plague 2.0. Now, when this game released, it was as bare bones as your grandma at the beach. You could barely call this game a modern multiplayer FPS. It was closer to Doom playing on a heart rate monitor than a playable online FPS. It had no scoreboard or server browser in the game. The maps were more barren than the Sahara Desert and had about as much cover as Fortnite's Zero build mode. They tried copying every other game at the time and put in specialists instead of the traditional class system that had been in the series since day one. It had no campaign, no leaderboards, and barely any progress in customization. And that was just the tip of the Battlefield 2042 shit show iceberg. I could go on forever, but instead here's a convenient list put together by Forbes of all people. But was there anything good about the game? Yes, they added a new mode called Portal, which was a community-driven mode where people could make their own modes, tweak settings like guns and maps, and even use a logic editor to create more complex experiences. But that was about all that was good in some capacity. So what was EA's response to this backlash, and how did they redeem themselves? Shortly after the release of the game, EA's global senior director Andy McNamara put a tweet stating, "Back to work today. Check Reddit and Twitter, and Battlefield fans are pissed we didn't do enough updates or communication during the holiday break. Guys, people gotta rest. We have things in motion, but we have to figure out what is possible. We will address it when we are 100%. Let us get back from break and get back to work. Love you guys, but these expectations are brutal. The things you want take time to scope, design, and execute." So, not really a great response. But what did they do to fix this mess, and how is the game now? First, they doubled down on the specialist being in the game, which wasn't really well received, but they at least restructured it to have the standard class system back in it. But all the changes were coming in different seasons that they were going to roll out throughout the game's lifespan. So let's go through the different seasons and see what each one adds, starting with Season 1. Season 1 was called 0 Hour and was released June 9th, 2022. In this season, they added a new map that takes place in the Canadian Rockies called Exposure. They added a new specialist named Evelina List that used a G-84 TGM rocket launcher as their ability. They added 2 new helicopters, the YG-99 Hannibal, the RAC-68 Huron, and they added 2 new weapons, the Ghostmaker Rio and the BSV-M. And on top of that, 1 new gadget called the Smoke Grenade Launcher. And they added a few things to BF Portal. Nothing crazy, but a few things. But most importantly, they had everyone's favorite disease, the Battle Pass. Oh, and they also made an online store that they could milk you dry for the skins or whatever. Cool. But let's see what Season 2 brought us. Season 2 was called Master Arms, released August 30th, 2022, added a new map named Stranded where you fight around and inside a beach container ship in Panama. They also added a new specialist named Charlie Crawford whose ability was a mounted machine gun and an expanded capacity for rocket launchers. They also added 2 new vehicles, the EBLC Ram and the Polaris RZR. And they added 3 new weapons, the AM-40, an LMG called the Avances, and the PF-51. They also added a concussion grenade and assignments, which is a new feature that allowed you to unlock weapons from the Battlefield portal. Season 3 was called Escalation, added a map that takes place in Sweden called Spearhead. They added a new specialist named Rashid Zain who uses the XM3708 airburst launcher. They added a vehicle called the EMKV-90. They added the throwing knife and 3 weapons, the MK4, the NVKP-125, and the NVK-S22. Season 3 was also when they started to add vault weapons, which were weapons from previous battlefields. In this season, they were the XM8 LMG and the A91. Now with Season 4, it was named the 11th Hour, added a map that takes place in South Africa called Flashpoint. They added the last specialist that would ever be added to this game, named Camila Blasco, whose ability would be the X6 infiltration device that would basically create a signal jammer. They would also add the Cav Brawler, 4 new weapons, the AC-9 SMG, the RM-60A AR, the RPT-31 LMG, and the Super 500 shotgun. They would also add the SPH explosive launcher, and the 2 new vault weapons that were added was the SVD and the Type 88 LMG. With Season 5, they called that the New Dawn, and that's when they started switching things up. They added a new map named Reclaim that takes place on an abandoned industrial facility that was taken over by nature in the Czech region. They added 3 new weapons, the BFP-50, the XCE bar, and the GW-46. They added 4 new gadgets, the spring grenade, the anti-tank grenade, and the mini grenade, and lastly, the RPG-7V2. The big difference in this season, though, was they started adding useful quality of life improvements. They started adapting vault weapons for use with all warfare attachments. They also introduced universal cosmetics for all vault weapons. They reworked some of the vehicle loadouts, making it more straightforward to understand. And 2 specialist dozers and Irish got some improvements to update them with the rest of the specialists. They also added a new squad management improvement that should have been in the game originally, and some more HUD customization and a bunch of other little tweaks and bug fixes. Season 6 was called Dark Creations, added a close quarter map called Redacted. They added 3 new weapons, the G428, the I9CV, and the VHX-D3. And they added ammo and medical pouches, and a new vehicle that has flight capabilities named the YUV-2, aka the Pound Hawk. They also added new quality of life improvements, like improvements on aim assist and tweaking how vehicles got handled, and a bunch of other little tweaks and bug fixes. Season 7 was called Turning Point, added 2 maps this time. The first one is named Haven and takes place in Atacama Desert, which is inspired by some of the OG Battlefield maps. The second map arrived later and is called Stadium, where you literally fight in and around a stadium. They added 3 new weapons, the AK-5C, the SCZ-3, and the DFR Strife LMG. And on top of that, they added the Predator Saw anti-vehicle launcher. They also added a new vehicle called the XFAD-4 Drawer, which was added later in the season. And lastly, there was some quality of life improvements. Now, EA stated that Season 7 is the final update that the game will get, and they will now be focusing their attention on the next installment, but will still maintain the servers and do occasional bug fixes. So that takes us up to present day 2025. The game is in a lot better spot than it was, and I would say it's a decent Battlefield game. It has been received relatively well compared to the start of it, but let me know what you guys think. Give me your thoughts on the game in its current state, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.